Picture a region that is home to nearly 2 billion people, where melting glaciers, sinking deltas, intense heat waves, and flooding are the norm, not the exception. This region is South Asia, and as the COP30 summit approaches, its demands are simple yet urgent. Move from promises to delivery. South Asia contributes under 9% of global greenhouse gas emission, yet suffers almost one-third of global climate-related economic losses, in part because it has faced floods, droughts, cyclones, and extreme heat affecting some 750 million people over the past 2 decades. In this context, climate action is not only an environmental issue, it is a development, security, and equity imperative. From regional consultations, South Asia articulates three pillars for climate diplomacy. First one is clarity, that means clear roles, responsibilities, timeliness. Second one is cooperation, that is shared regional mechanism, technology, finance. And third one is implementation. It means measurable actions, not just declarations. These pillars form the yardstick against which COP30 outcomes should be judged. Let's explore five key priorities the region is emphasizing. First one is bridging the implementation gap. Many commitments exist, but delivery is weak. For example, since 2015, only a small percentage of climate initiatives have achieved their stated goals, pointing to weak governance and reporting. Regional cooperation mechanisms like peer learning, aligned governance, shared platforms are needed to raise performance levels. Second one is elevating adaptations alongside mitigation. Adaptation is no longer optional. In South Asia, days exceeding 35 degrees Celsius could rise significantly by 2100, exposing populations to heat stress, water scarcity, and health shocks. Countries such as Maldives, Nepal, India, and Sri Lanka underscore how diverse the risks are. Hence, policy must integrate adaptation into development planning, build institutional capacity, and mobilize finance and technology quickly. Third one is rebuilding trust through credible ambition. Delay, broken promises, and weak targets have eroded confidence in the climate regime. Developed countries are not on track to meet existing 2030 targets, which matters for the trust deficit. For South Asia, credible climate diplomacy means existing commitments honored, new targets aligned to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and mechanisms for tracking delivery in place. The fourth one is finance that is predictable, adequate, accessible, and not debt-inducing. Climate finance must satisfy four criteria like reliability, sufficiency, easy access, and non-debt. A roadmap from Baku to Belém proposes annual flows up to $1.3 trillion globally, but unless the who, how, when accountability questions are resolved, the region's adaptation finance needs remain unmet. As one example, more than 750 million people across the region have experienced at least one natural disaster in the past 2 decades. The proposal includes a South Asia Resilience Finance Facility to channel innovative finance solutions to domestic priorities. Fifth one is harnessing non-state actors for scale. The states cannot do this alone. Private sectors, supranational governance, civil society, youth and academia must become engines of scale. For example, community-driven programs in Nepal's mountain zones, digital public infrastructure tools for climate governance, private finance unlock for renewable energy and resilient infrastructure. Where non-state actors are aligned with national and regional frameworks, delivery is faster, broader, and more equitable. For India and its neighboring countries, the implications are clear. India has an opportunity to lead regional coalition, align its rising renewable ambition with the resilience needs of neighboring countries and deploy finance and technology domestically and regionally. The South Asia region as a bloc has greater negotiating leverage, when it presents shared priorities rather than fragmented positions, especially given shared ecosystems like the Ganges, Brahmaputra, Meghna Basin, the Sundarbans, the Himalayas. Domestic policy must link climate resilience, sustainable infrastructure, just transition, and technology access, echoing the regional call for inclusive, innovation-driven governance. When analyzing climate diplomacy and policy responses, there are certain points that should be considered. The first one is how vulnerability intersects with equity. Second one is the tension between mitigation and adaptation, and why both are essential. The third one is the financial model, that is why grants matter more for the least developed, why non-state actors matter, why regional pooling matters. And the fourth one is how implementation mechanisms distinguish effective action from symbolic commitments. And the fifth one is the role of regionally led solutions, sharing knowledge, technology, best practice, not waiting for global laws assistance alone. Key indicators of progress at Belém may include operational pathways, that is, are they clear who does what, why, when commitments. And second one is finance windows. Are dedicated allocations defined for adaptation in South Asia with ease of access and non-debt terms? Third one is technology access. Is there commitment to support clean energy transitions, climate smart agriculture, data early warning systems? And the fourth one is regional mechanisms. Does South Asia present a united agenda and actionable framework for cooperation? And the fifth one is inclusion of non-state actors. Are sub-national governments, youth, civil society, and private sector built into governance, monitoring, and delivery framework? South Asia demands a climate diplomacy rooted in clarity of roles, regional cooperation, and measurable implementation with high vulnerability, limited historic responsibility, and existential climate risk. The region's position emphasizes adaptation, equity, predictable finance, non-state actors engagement, and regional solidarity. COP30 must therefore transition from negotiating ideas to enabling action. Finance flows, technology transfers, governance frameworks, and delivery mechanisms. Failure to make progress risks locking the region into a pathway of 2.3 degrees Celsius or more warming and disproportionately high economic and human cost. To summarize, South Asia is not waiting anymore, it is vulnerable, yes, but also ready to lead. The future of global climate cooperation will depend on three mutuals: clarity in roles, cooperation across borders and sectors, and implementation that result in real-world outcomes. What happens at COP30 will matter, not just for policymakers, but for the billions living on the climate frontline. Thank you for listening. Stay engaged, stay informed, because climate action now defines resilience, equity, and growth in our shared futures.